Joe, big news coming in the recruiting ranks as Deion Sanders goes and get a 5-star quarterback in JuJu Lewis out of Carrollton, Georgia. Joe, I think a lot of people were questioning, if Deion could pull a move like this off, and yet here we are talking about him potentially giving the keys over to the offense to JuJu Lewis now that his son may be leaving school here. Your thoughts on JuJu Lewis flipping his commitment?
Yeah, well, the decommitment that we saw from him this past week after Hassan Longstreet committed to USC opened the door for this to happen, and there has been plenty of murmurs of this occurring over the past few months. One, just quickly talking about him as a prospect, he checks every box that you look for in the modern quarterback. He's super mobile. He improvises well. He can throw on the run. He can throw off platform. He's got a pretty good arm. He's developing. This is also a younger player because he reclassified from 2026 to 2025. So there's a lot of room for him to continue to grow physically, mentally, on the field, all of those things. Biggest takeaway, though, from the Colorado Deion Sanders perspective, I think that this pretty much completely quiets any speculation that he was going to jump to the NFL. And he has been quick to deny it. But you're not going to make a commitment to a young man like this if you're considering making that move. And it's a very different reason, a very different situation if he did choose to go to the NFL. So I think him being this direct to say, hey, I'm not going to try to follow my son and coach, for example, the Dallas Cowboys. I'm trying to build up this Colorado program, and I want you to be the next face of that program. It's massive for the future of this team.
Joe, I'm not buying that. I got to be real with you. I'm not buying that in the slightest, because if the Dallas Cowboys do come calling and they do draft Shador, he's gone. Okay, I'm not let's just be real about the current situation here. But I don't want to say that JuJu Lewis is any type of backup plan or that he will leave Colorado or anything like that. But there is a lot of talk about him leaving and potentially going to the NFL. So, look, I think from a high school recruiting ranking aspect, when I look at not just adding JuJu Lewis, who is the, I guess, creme de la crop, if you will, in their recruiting class. They also went and got Adrian Wilson. They also got Gooden, the interior offensive lineman. They have actually been a little bit better than normally that we've seen Deion do in the high school recruiting ranks. They're 46th in On3's rankings, which is vastly better than where they were a year ago. Now, Joe, Deion has done this really everywhere he's gone. He flips Draylon Miller last year, who had a big game last week. He gets Travis Hunter when nobody thought that a kid like that would go to an FCS program when they were at Jackson State. What is he going to pull off in the end of this? So it is the prime effect. It is the Deion effect. And I think it needs to be noticed of what they're doing and what they're building in the Big 12. JuJu reclassifying, I will say this. Look, Joe, I'll ask you this. Name a quarterback that's reclassified that's had success.
Well, there's also not a very long list of kids who have done it.
But it's about 10 now.
It's about 10, and this is something that has been talked about in recruiting on, does it make sense for guys to reclassify? I think that I'm in wait and see, because I don't want to, if there's only 10 guys, I don't think that's enough of a sample size for me to say that impacts a kid's future.
When you're 0 for 10, though, it's a big.
Okay. But I want to say, though, that it should mean that you should not expect for JuJu Lewis to start as a true freshman. A 17-year-old is different than an 18-year-old in athletes' growth and progression. I would anticipate that Colorado, especially because Deion Sanders has talked about this, that his approach is to be portal first because he believes that he wants to be able to go out there and get veteran players in. I would bet that they're probably going to be in the market for one of the bigger names at the quarterback position, for them next season before they move to JuJu Lewis as the starter, maybe in his sophomore year.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, look, they got the holes that they would need to fill. Clearly a quarterback, clearly a receiver, and clearly a DB. So there will be some holes that they fill. But JuJu Lewis is a big name. And look, again, Joe, we're talking about a couple of things here. Number one, Colorado is in playoff contention. Not only that, they're getting top premier flight players. They got a 5-star last year. I mean, if I would have told you 3 years ago that a 1-11 Colorado team would be pulling off some of the stuff that they're pulling off, I mean, like it's an insane turnaround, right? And so, Joe, I got to ask you this, because of what Deion and the momentum of that they have. I do think, Joe, recruiting shifts the momentum in a lot of different ways in public perspective of teams and programs and stuff like that. I mean, Joe, if Colorado wants to win in the Big 12, I mean, we got to have a serious conversation about Deion being the coach of the year in college football. Right. If they go 10-2 or 11-2 here, based off of what they've done and accomplished. In reference to JuJu, look, I think he's a kid, 6 foot, 185 pounds. I think he can make some plays. He's very shifty. Reminds me a lot of Bryce Young, Joe, in the pocket.
Yeah. There's been a lot of comparisons to Bryce Young.
Well, I mean, it's because their games are very similar. I mean, very similar
build to. Yeah.
I don't know if he has the shortstop instincts, and what I mean by that is Bryce would make throws sidearm. He would just second baseman, shortstop throws. And I don't know if JuJu has that, but I do think he's a better athlete than Bryce was.
Yeah.
So if there's a comparison here, I could see that fold and mold being here. He's definitely going to have weapons. That's for damn sure. So it's a really big addition for Colorado. Let me ask you this question before we get out of here too.
Okay.
If I'm going to throw this out there, and Colorado fans are going to be pissed, but we gotta bring up the USC point here, right? Okay. USC loses JuJu Lewis, but they go and get Longstreet, which might be, Joe.
He's also JuJu's not the only other USC or previous USC commit this past week that has decided to end up at Colorado. So that also needs to be brought up in where I'm assuming you're taking
very
this.
Fair. But in reference to quarterback v. quarterback, I mean, Joe, I think that USC, though, ultimately gets an upgrade here, in my humble opinion.
I won't go with upgrade. I think that they're both talented. I don't know this for sure, and I'm sure that we'll get the scuttlebutt from recruiting analysts later on this week. But I would assume with all of the smoke that JuJu Lewis was going to end up at Colorado, then Lincoln Riley was trying to build a contingency plan and was trying to see who he could go out there and get. And I'm sure that Longstreet came along and was interested in playing for USC, that they pulled the trigger and just said, JuJu, we don't want to play this game anymore. If you want to play for us or not, we're going to go with Longstreet. Right. You can go play for Colorado. That's kind of what it feels like to me. I don't, because they would have done that so long ago. You know, they were trying to commit to this kid, and they would have definitely moved on from him if they didn't think he was the right option a while ago. We're not talking about a 4-star recruit. We're talking about one of the premier names and who originally was the number 1 2026 recruit. But the overall recruiting buildup for this class, I don't think that it's going to be reflective. The amount of guys that they have is going to be reflective of how quality the class is, because Coach Prime talked about last week how he wants to keep his high school classes small and prioritize the transfer portal. The more important thing is if you can continue, and there's projections that they could continue to flip some of these high 4-star, 5-star guys up until signing day, they're going to have the most talented roster in the Big 12. And it is in a conference where it's currently devoid of talent. They could be really strongly positioned to go on a run and to be the team that does run the Big 12. It was one of the things that we talked about, that they are a team that when they made that transition to a different conference from the Pac-12, that they would be built to be highly successful because they would be more talented and put up better products every single week.
I think Longstreet can play, Joe. Look, I mean, there's a reason he's the number 1 player in the state of California. It's not like those dudes stink when they come out of there. Right. Okay. They did flip him. I get it. But look, as much as we've talked crap about, I say we talk crap, as much as there been crap talking about USC, Joe, they're still 15th in the country in recruiting. Okay. They've taken some lumps, but they've been able to rebound here, and I think it's a big deal for them too. But I want to say this. I was really hoping that if JuJu Lewis did flip here, that they would go after, wait for it, Madden Iamalava, Nico's younger brother. His first name's Madden. He's in the state of California, man. I mean, but they wound up flipping long streak. So big day for Prime. I mean, it's a big deal. I mean, you got to give it to them, man. They're doing things that, 3 years ago seemed far-fetched, and it's a really big addition.
BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.